Our goal for today is that you would find one thing that you can implement to improve your contact center, yourself, or the world around you. Well, and maybe there's one more thing, and that would be that if perhaps you should come across a challenge in your contact center, that perhaps you might think of Mindsight and Vitech as a potential, and give us a ring. So the sponsors today are Vitech and Mindsight, and I would like to introduce Kim Morgan, who's going to share with us some practical tips on the WebEx we're using today.
Good afternoon, everybody. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with the WebEx interface, but there are a couple options that you have for interacting with our panelists and this webinar. So in the bottom right of your screen, you can send a chat to the host or any of the panelists. You can raise your hand, and then there's a whole bunch of icons that indicate feedback you can give. So you can send an emoticon, or you can let the panelists know that they're going too fast or too slow. We invite you to send us your feedback, and we hope to incorporate what you have to say with our presentation today. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Kim.
Thanks, Kim.
All right, let's introduce the presenters today. I'll kick it off. So this is Vince Fulgenzi, and I am the CEO of Vitech. I feel Vitech is uniquely qualified to present to you on this topic today because we virtualized our company over 10 years ago. And during that decade plus, we have been able to accomplish all of our fiscal goals, as well as provide an incredible experience, a balance of work and life for our team members. With that, I would like to introduce you to someone who has been instrumental in achieving our success, and that is my partner, Michelle O'Brien.
When I thought you were going to choose Clade, I was like, choose me. Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle O'Brien, and I'm a Vice President at Vitech. And as Vince mentioned, we virtualized about 10, 11 years ago, and I feel even a bit more uniquely qualified from just a social perspective, because I say a lot of words. I even talk in my, don't get enough words in per day. And so it was a very interesting undertaking for me, from being such a social creature to transitioning to home. So I do feel that I have some unique insight there, and just want to thank you all for joining us and taking the time out of your day to spend it with us. And then I'd like to toss it over to my good friend, Clade.
Thank you, Michelle. I really appreciate it. My name is Clade. I'm with Mindsight. Mindsight and Vitech have been partnering together for years, trying to help customers in the contact center space. I'm unique, I think, because I've been doing unique in the sense of I can help you resolve some of the issues you've been having working from home, because I've been doing contact center consulting for almost 16 years, and I've been working from home part-time for the last 12 years, so a couple of days a week working from home. And on top of that, in the last 2 months, we have helped over 30 customers, contact center customers, actually make the transition of working from home in this hard situation we're going through. And with that, I think Vince takes over, right? Or is it you, Michelle?
I will take it from here. So
Okay.
Today we're going to talk about the 3 pillars of truth in managing a remote center. It's the management, motivation, and relationship. In management, what's different between remote versus on-site? How do the KPIs vary, or do they? How do we help agents when you just can't walk over to their desk anymore? From a motivation standpoint, and this one I can relate back to earlier in my career. I was the president of an association of presidents. And boy, you talk about herding cats. In this case, with remote, motivation needs to be in its purest form. And then lastly, with relationship, building relationship, not just maintaining, but actually building relationship is a challenge, because why are people going to stay with the organization? What is the value that the company provides to those team members? And you know, what does that look like on an ongoing basis? Kim, next slide, please. So, simplifying complex management. Almost sounds like an oxymoron. In fact, I think it is. To lead a remote team, well, managers, frankly, need to loosen the reins a little bit. And I know that seems polar opposite of what I was just saying about managing the KPIs. But when we think about what we've done with our teams and the KPIs that we've used over the course of time, think about the old days when we moved from managing AHT, average handle time, to customer satisfaction, and how customer satisfaction was much easier to manage to than AHT, and so much more important to the organization, or ASA versus service level. You know, average speed of answer, it's easy to hide behind that and have all kinds of things going wrong in the organization. But service level, when you're trying to get 80% of the calls answered in 20 seconds or less, if it's not happening, there's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. And then lastly, another example is, instead of quality, looking at first call resolution. And again, with first call resolution, what's more important to the client? That's the bottom line, is was everything resolved on that first call? And so as we look at these things, we expand our management skills and abilities. Kim, next slide, please. So let's think about the common challenges. Now, in a premise situation, we have distractions, right? And there's a perfect example of it. In a home environment, there are distractions as well. They're just different. And so learning how to manage and deal with those is a significant skill set that may need to be developed. Now, FaceTime. That's a big issue for many people, because all of a sudden we have a huge lack of FaceTime. However, the upside of that is that we don't have to deal with the office politics. And there are no agents crying in the office anymore. There's no crying in the office. No crying. And that's a huge plus for you. So sure, you're losing one thing but picking up another. And then managing through communication breakdowns. How are we going to deal with making sure that everyone is in the loop and feels a part of what's going on? However, we also pick up this ability to focus in an incredible way, because once you turn off, close the email and the chat windows, you can really, well, assuming you can get the kids to be quiet and the dogs from barking, you can really focus. Kim, next slide, please. All right, KPIs that count. So when we start looking at what's going on and what's really important, is it important to measure the number of calls, the number of emails, the number of chats, tracking all these interactions? Or perhaps what's really important is what happens during the interaction. What's of value to the contact center? What's of value to the organization? So for example, maybe it's the number of support tickets that were opened and, most importantly, closed. Maybe it's the number of registrations that we took. Maybe it's the amount of revenue that was booked. There are elements of this that have to do with managing and the work that the contact center is providing to the organization. So when we think about routing that work, how do we go about doing that? And I want you to start to think of this like when we're managing an interaction, and that interaction, whether it's a call, an email, or chat, coming into a solution in the contact center that is then routed based on a set of business rules. Imagine doing that with the actual workload. think of it like an electronic assembly line. In fact, when it comes to assembly lines, if we look at the picture of this fellow at the top right, you may recognize him. That's Henry Ford. The fellow you may not recognize is the one below him, and his name is Ransom Olds, and Olds as in Oldsmobile. So people think Henry Ford really developed the assembly line. That's not true. It was really Ransom Ford. However, what Henry Ford did is he applied the assembly line to a product that had mass appeal, and that was the success that Ford was able to enjoy in the size of their organization. Oldsmobile was acquired by General Motors, and while they have the notoriety of being the longest running automotive company in the United States, which was from 1897 to 2004, they did not achieve the level of a success that Ford did. And why is that? Again, it's because of the market appeal. It's because of getting that to what was really important to the market. For your contact center, the same principle applies, and that is measuring what's important to the organization. Measuring, you know, if you're not operating your contact center as a profit center, perhaps you should be. So measuring profit, measuring cost, measuring customer satisfaction, net promoter score, all examples. And if you can't quite get to that, perhaps measuring cost per agent or cost per interaction, revenue per agent. There's a number of things that we can look at that get down to measuring what's really important to your organization in terms of what the contact center is putting out. Now, in terms of establishing these goals, when you have things that are brand new, let's look at how to go about doing that. So first, as you start to measure a new item, you may not know what's important to or what level it should be at. So first you have to measure it. That's okay, Kim. That'll be Michelle's slide. I'm going to hand off to her shortly. So the first step would be measuring it, and then once you understand what level everyone is at and what impacts those KPIs, then changing then what you can do to change it to improve it, then establishing new goals, and those become the KPIs. If you have any questions, please go ahead and submit those now. I'm going to turn it over to Michelle to talk about motivation.
Nice, Vince. Thank you so much for that. And again, everyone, thanks for hanging with us. So there's an old adage that goes, there's nothing constant but change. And that may be making many of you smile. In this global pandemic, it has initiated unprecedented changes to the history of humanity, an unprecedented digital and organizational transformation as billions of people. But in this day and age and at this time, it's nice to know that there are a couple of things that have not changed. And this one, human beings being the true value of any organization, that remains true. Lord Kennison said it 100 years ago, and it remains true today. And the principles, whether geographic locations change or not, will also remain the same of managing and motivating, because all human beings are motivated by the same thing. Kim, if you would. I'm not going to read these to you because you're probably already doing these, and they're true, again, whether we're working remote or on site, large or small. And Kim, if you'd stay here for just a second, I know that there's another slide that didn't quite make it in, and I'm sorry for that. But that was to talk a little bit about AMP, which is actually the 3 primary human motivators. If you are a human being, you're motivated by one of these 3 things: autonomy, mastery, or purpose. Autonomy being people want to have control over their stuff. They want to be in charge of their stuff. Some people are motivated by that. Mastery, people want to get better at what they do. And mastery really is just for mastery's sake. So let's say I want to run faster. And so I train to run faster. And in my running faster, I'm winning a bunch of medals and races. That's just a byproduct of my mastery of running faster. And that was my ultimate goal. And purpose, which is a large motivator for most people. It's that people want to be a part of something bigger than they are. And it's super important to maintain that sense of purpose, especially in this social isolation. So as we go through these tips, some of them may be familiar to you, and I hope that you'll share some of the things maybe that you're doing to motivate your team, or to keep your family close, because we can all learn from that. So Kim, if you will. Setting up a digital office space. You've probably already done this. Standardizing is super important. Choose one for the organization and let everyone get familiar with it. Email is just not efficient, and it's not going to cut it in this new normal. In fact, it's going to disconnect people more than it has to date. It doesn't have public channels. It can't integrate to other content sources. You can meet in private rooms or host functions in private rooms where you can meet with customers or team members. It doesn't have the ability to mention or emojis, use of emojis, which add that human element to our digital communications, and they're so important nowadays. And from a security perspective, don't even get me started. System admins cannot manage public spaces like that. And when an employee quits, they really have no way to systemically remove that person from a group. So it opens up all kinds of holes. But you didn't come here for what not to do. So let's keep going. Just a quick note, Kim, if you would, if you choose WhatsApp as your corporate, or if you've don't. It really will not go well for you. Kim, if you would. Thanks. Tip number 2, meeting via video conferencing a lot. We're probably already doing this, but I'm coming at it from a different perspective and casting our minds back to the autonomy, mastery, and purpose. This really touches on purpose. It continues to remind people that they're still part of something bigger, even if we are isolated. So creating those rhythms and consistencies with your folks by meeting conferencing is important, because a lot of people are not comfortable in front of a camera. And there are a lot of ways to help get your people very comfortable with this, because this will be the form of media until we're told otherwise, where we can see and meet with one another. Consistency and connectivity are more important than ever. So perhaps there's some regular, short, daily or weekly meetings on important topics via video. Have your teams perhaps do a quick stand-up to talk a little bit about what's important and going on in their world. Organize some leader and employee meetings. Don't let it happen organically yet, because again, that comfort with the camera, if it's not there, it won't happen. So you go ahead and set the tone until that consistency can be there. But there are a couple of other cool things. You can encourage your folks to come a couple of minutes earlier before the stand-up and have them connect, take an interest in one another. It sounds really basic. Ask about your children, their children. Ask about their pets, the favorite project they may have going on in the garage. Research has shown that that kind of interaction with folks releases all those feel-good hormones of oxytocin and vasopressin, and who doesn't love it? It makes you smile. You can organize a virtual open lunchroom or break room, where people who are on break or lunch at the same time from home can meet and greet and, forgive my French, shoot the shit. Leaders and team members can have their own rooms where they can go in and just ask another team member, hey, I had this challenge today. Have you ever run up against it? Or here's a story. What should I do? And they can gain feedback from one another. And one of my favorites is taking open door policy to a whole new level as a manager. Put yourself in an open room of some sort and let your folks know, I'm going to be here all day, or I'm going to be here from 10 to 2. Please pop in and see me. Tell me a joke. Tell me a story. Just say hey. And again, it really helps with the connectivity, but the primary goal is to get your folks comfortable with the camera, because that will be an ongoing process that one will use to connect with others. Kim, if you would. Yeah, here's where I'd love to get some feedback from you guys. We've done a couple of things, but organizing virtual gatherings, they really are super fun. And these are outside of work. You could do cocktail hour, games, dinner parties, a variety of different things. And I would love to hear what you guys may be doing out there And I know Kim showed you how to send a message of what you've done and what is working. The other night we farkled with our family, and that's not a bad word, it's actually a dice game. And we had so very much fun. And then for Easter dinner, we got all of our family together from different time zones. Everybody made a meal, and we met at a specific time and ate our meal together. And it was a blast. So again, love to hear what you guys are doing, because try it. And if something doesn't work for you, try something else. Kim, if you would. Okay, yeah, so the rules of friendly communication. This is me. This is Michelle O'Brien, open mouth, insert foot. I miscommunicate what people are saying in text or email all the time. And that primarily happens because 80% of our informational intake comes from body language. So if you're not seeing the person, which email and text you're not, you're left with this kind of janky 20% to try to discern what people are saying. I muck it up all the time. And for employees who are unfamiliar with remote work, this is going to be a problem. It's not if something is going to happen conflictually, it's when it's going to happen. It's no one's fault. It's just there's so many ways to say things. And so prepare for it. It's going to happen. You know, your team member's not trying to be a tool. You were both hired by the same company. You're smart people. So take it offline, and as you would in any relationship, friendly, constructive engagement is important. Understand where the other person is coming from and understand what you were trying to say, and use constructive arguments, again, in a friendly manner to arrive at some kind of conflict resolution. And remember, conflict is always a chance to lead, and leaders bring people up, but non-leaders bring people down. Kim, please. Thank you. Tip 5, measuring their happiness and stress. Who's their happiness? It's your most valuable asset. It's your people. Constantly thinking about their emotional, personal, and professional well-being is a must. How to make their world a better place, because they make your engine hum. Kim, if you would. Anything? Kim? Oh, thank you. Working in isolation with your entire family surrounding you will prove to be challenging for most. We can get a little bit lost. So this is a great tip. Take the time to share a shout out, right? Keep giving people those accolades. Send it to the whole company. Let people know that colleagues are doing a job well done. It gives employees that sense of pride over their work, which is that autonomy piece. Right? It also gives them that sense of purpose by being a part of something bigger. And obviously that mastery because they've done a great job. So it touches on all of those human motivators. It's fantastic. Plus, it leads to a trickle-down effect, because when someone sees that someone else is getting accolades, they want them too. Who wouldn't? So then they potentially work harder. You have that ripple effect. They put in more effort into their own work to get that same desired attention and praise from management. It's win-win. And the cool thing is that other people start taking on those kinds of same words and giving their colleagues pats on the back. So that's a fantastic way to spend some time motivating your folks, just giving them those props. Kim? Provide constant communication. That is absolutely a must-do for your job, especially now. There's no way to over-communicate at this point in time or to over-document things. People are counting on you to know what's going on with and within the organization. They feel calmer when they feel as if they've got the most current information. And so daily communication, even multiple times a day, would not be too much to let your team know, I'm here, you're part of us, and here's what's going on. This was a question that came from one of our attendees, Jeremy at Crown Castle, before we got started. And thank you so much, Jeremy, for asking, because I think that a lot of people, especially if this is their first time working remote, have these questions. In the past, we've always been shushing our kids when they come home and we're on a video conference, and trying to find that space where it's super quiet, no pets, no chirping birds, no nothing. But don't worry if your kids or pets are making noise in the background. Everybody's got it going on, right? Be understanding. It again adds that human element. We're all working from home, schooling from home. Everything has become home. Don't worry if they interrupt you or if an employee needs to step away. Again, it's that understanding. Humanize it. We're all doing it. We all have the need for a drink or to be thirsty or to just grab something. And do encourage, we just did this yesterday, do encourage your employees to introduce their children. Pick them up, put them on their lap, you let them say hi. A pet, bring in a pet and put them on your lap and introduce people or see if people notice. It's the impactful way that we can motivate our employees is to just be flexible and kind and empathetic. And the flexibility is more around the workday and getting stuff done versus punching a clock and getting it done within a specific amount of time. A work-life balance that must be encouraged. And in these unique times, we really need to find that. So be kind, be empathetic, and most of all, maintain a terrific sense of humor. So that's about it. I wanted to tell, oh, actually, no, there's more. Okay, yes. So do ask your team questions about how things are going. Not a lot, perhaps limit it to 1 or 2 high level, and you will get feedback. If you start bombarding surveys, trying to keep a pulse on how they're feeling, it's just not going to work out. But once you gather that insight to accommodate making some changes to their needs and their comfort level, make sure that there are changes that can be seen, that can be noticed. And so that employees do feel like, hey, I said something and now this is happening. That is really a terrific motivator. And then finally, I just wanted to share with you guys, and I don't know if you've heard about it, but I just found out about it yesterday from one of our employees on just happiness and stress and meeting via video conference. There's a company called GOAT, like the animal, to meeting, where you can bring in a goat or a llama, like chewing his cud or something, onto a video conference that you're having, which just introduces a whole element of fun, and maybe a chicken or something, and maybe you don't even tell your team members that a goat or a llama will be joining you, and just have them kind of pop in like this is Alfredo the llama. I think it's hilarious, and I think it would just add some fun. And Clade, I'm sorry to ramble on and on. I'll probably talk more in my sleep now tonight, but I'm not stealing any of your thunder, but I'm going to turn it over to Clade for the last half of our presentation. So thanks, everyone.
You know, maybe for the next one, we could shoot to get the Dalai Lama.
You can have a llama named Dolly. There you go. There's the Dalai Lama.
Thank you, Michelle. Really appreciate it. I'm covering the relationship piece of the presentation, and there's some overlap between relationships and motivations. So some of the points that Michelle just made, I'm just going to repeat in here with a little bit of a different twist, right? So like Vince said in the beginning, if you guys only take away one thing from here and apply it either to motivate or improve relationships within your contact center, that's our goal, right? Take away 1 or 2 things, and I think we have achieved our objective for this presentation. So in the beginning, Vince said that call centers have been really focused on KPIs and increasing efficiencies for a long time. Actually, if you compare how closely contact center agents are monitored versus other professional jobs, nothing really comes close, right? We have all kinds of KPIs and call recordings monitoring everything that an agent is doing. In 1913, Henry Ford started using the assembly line in his factories. And by making a very simple change, he was able to cut the car assembly time from 12 hours to 90 minutes. And then for the next 30 years, manufacturing companies were obsessed with this idea of increasing productivity. As we moved from manufacturing jobs to white-collar jobs, we really started seeing a series of experiments on how to improve performance. We started seeing companies offer different perks to their employees, like on-site cafeterias, different light levels, ergonomic desks and chairs, even some Silicon Valley companies where they're doing sleeping pods so people can take a nap during the day. And that wouldn't work very well if you're a contact center agent and you're napping during the day. So in the last 20 years, the level of engagement has been the focus of this research. How engaged are your employees, right? Engagement is really an individual metric. It basically measures how an agent feels about their work experience. One of the key components of engagement is a sense of belonging. In other words, having close relationships and belonging to a group at work. Relationships, camaraderie, friendships, a sense of belonging, whatever you want to call it, at the end of the day, it's going to have a major impact on how your remote workers are going to survive the situation we're going through right now. And Kim, can you please move on to the next slide? Thank you. So according to Gallup research, employees that have a close friend at work are 7 times more likely to stay at a job. We all know that relationships are built on interactions we have with each other. And when we're in the office, those interactions come naturally. You share the same office, you have lunch together, relationships naturally get built over time. In today's world, where more and more people are working from home, it's a little bit harder, let's be honest, right? That is why it's more important than ever for managers, supervisors to really take a relationship-centric approach to managing their teams. So how do we really foster stronger friendships, right? How do we foster a sense of belonging in this remote call center environment? The first thing is, like Vince and Michelle both mentioned, number one, it's having that face-to-face communication. 90% of the information we convey is through nonverbal expression. So make it a point to have a daily meeting with video, right? And really embrace video. Like Michelle said, have your kids around, have your pets around. And if you're a call center manager and you feel like, oh, there's no way I'm going to have a daily meeting because I cannot take everybody offline, everything is kind of slow right now for most businesses, right? So if you can take 50% of your team offline and have a 10, 15-minute meeting, and then take the other half of your team in the afternoon, make it work somehow, right? Having that face-to-face right now is crucial. And then the other thing for collaboration and face-to-face is that the contact center software that you use should have collaboration tools built in. And this term collaboration is thrown around a lot, right? So I'm gonna go and be a little bit more specific. What do I mean by collaboration tools? So having ability to chat with the other agents and supervisors, having the ability to initiate a video call with your coworkers from your contact center software, having the ability to screen share, having the ability to have a room where you can work together on a project or on a task. And this is really the biggest challenge we see with our customers. They're using 3 or 4 different tools to collaborate, right? So they're using a different tool for chat, they're using a different tool for video, their contact center is separate. And even when it comes to talking to their customers, sometimes they're using a different contact center platform for chat, a different contact center platform for voice. Email is completely different. So at this point, there's one question everybody on this call should ask themselves: how many tools, how many hoops are your agents jumping through to actually get their job done and collaborate properly within your organization and outside of your organization? So I'd love to hear some feedback on that. So if you can actually are able to quickly count like how many different tools you are using, I'd like to get some feedback on the chat window if that's possible. And that's one of the reasons that that's why every platform we service, every platform we sell and do consulting on, are all in one platforms, right? We always avoid trying to have multiple platforms and deploy those in our customers. And then lastly, Michelle touched on this as well. Email, it's really the black hole of communication, right? Even when you're dealing with emails from customers or emails within your team, really try to avoid it. It's very hard to build relationships through email. Second is try to have non-work related events. Something that works pretty well is having a book club. So have a book that's really non-work related. Make it a fun book, something that people can relate to, and have a discussion via video about that book once a week, twice a week, however often you want to do it. But important, don't make it a professional book. A lot of companies, they make this part of their professional development. But now we just want to get away, right? Get away and think about an interesting book that we're really going to connect to and willingly read it, right? And the other thing is virtual happy hours. Virtual happy hours via video, again, really makes a big difference in helping people feel connected. Third is this idea of feedback. Should really ask for frequent input from your agents and then act on it when it's appropriate, right? Just getting feedback is not enough. If an agent is making a suggestion that is really a good suggestion, we should act on it as soon as possible. One of the biggest mistakes that most supervisors make from all the call centers we've been working with is they only talk to their agents during performance reviews. Performance reviews, really not the right time to build a close relationship. The other thing to keep in mind is that 40% of the workforce today, it's made up of millennials. That number is actually higher in call centers, right? Millennials make up a higher percentage of call center workforce. So millennials are very used to immediate feedback. Over communication is key here. So over communicate with your agents as much as you can. Gamification is another piece that really strikes an idea of actually interacting more between millennials. If you have a gamification platform and you have dashboards and you're keeping score and making a challenge for them, that really makes those millennials feel more connected and really strikes a interaction between them. So they're gonna have more frequent interaction if you are using a gamification platform in your call center. The fourth, and I think this is one of the most important points, lead by example. As we all know, everything starts from the top. How the senior management behaves to the supervisors usually trickles down to the agents. So senior management should always be leading by example. Supervisors should only be in charge of smaller teams. So in some call centers, I see supervisors have like 50 agents working for them or even more, right? We really recommend having smaller teams, less than 10 agents. 10 agents for each supervisor to really try to drive that higher engagement we're all looking for. The other thing is continuous communication, like we're doing here, right? We're repeating some of the same points over and over again, and we're kind of over communicating. So as a supervisor, try to share as much information as you can. Share company news, share your vision, provide support for agents that might be going through a rough time. Even share personal details when it is appropriate. Try to participate in all non-work related events and really try to treat people the way you like to be treated. And sometimes it's as simple as that. And then the fifth point here, the last point, the fifth point, it's about hiring. I know that a lot of us are not hiring today, but as we move on to the future, we're going to start hiring again and rebuilding our teams and adding people to our teams. So mindful hiring, the type of people that you hire, it's going to determine how successful your team will be. So when we hire people in Mindsight, we really make sure that everyone on the team is on board with that person. We try to use personality tests whenever we can to make sure that everybody is a good fit for the job that they are signing up for. And really have that corporate culture in mind when you do your hiring. One of the greatest examples of customer service success is probably Zappos.com. Zappos.com, it's well known for the stellar customer service. So what was the secret to their success? And I think the secret to their success is started with hiring. Zappos.com was headquartered out of Las Vegas. So everybody they hired came from the tourism industry. Everybody they hired either worked in casinos or hotels. So they had that customer service mindset throughout their careers. So by hiring people with the same background and hiring people with customer service attitude, Zappos.com was able to create one of the best customer service organizations that I've ever seen. And then finally, most call centers are viewed as an expense center, right? Their performance is usually tied to KPIs, abandonment rates, average wait times. And it's very easy for call center leaders to get lost in the shuffle and only focus on the numbers. In today's environment, trying to focus on motivation, relationships, staying engaged while working from home, we think it's going to lead to a better performance, a better retention rate, and at the end, it's going to drive a better customer experience. I think that's all I had, Vince. Do you want to take it over and go over the closing remarks?
Thank you, Clay. And thank you all for attending. Let me just ask Kim, do we have any questions that came in? And while I'm wrapping up, I'll be happy to address those, or we'll have Clay or Michelle jump on. But I do want to thank everyone for attending and ask you to put on your calendars our next topic in this series, which is the future of remote. What if we never go back? What what if only some of us go back? What are the implications to ourselves, to our companies, to our communities? You know, how does remote work, remote school impact our world long term? Do you want to stay in the same house? You know, yeah, that house that you chose because it was such a short commute to work that you don't drive into anymore, or because it was in that excellent school district that's now online. What are the important features in homes, in locations, in jobs? How will kids learn socialization skills while going to remote school? For that matter, how are you going to learn the socialization skills associated with this, the new normal? What's going to happen to the handshake, the hug, the kiss? What's going to replace it? Are we just going to do how, like the Indians, or the namaste? These are the things we'll be discussing in the next one with our futurist hats on. I would also like to extend to you an invitation for a free 30-minute video contact center review. It's the touchless contact center review. And also ask us about the zero-touch contact center cloud install and special pricing that's available in the event that you find you're in need of a solution. Kim, any questions that came in? Kim, are you still there?
Hi, sorry, I was muted.
Okay.
No, there don't seem to be any questions at this time, but if people want to submit them on the side or separately, we'll be more than happy to field them as well.
Okay. We ran a little bit over today. I apologize about that, but I think it was a good topic. So thank you all, and have a great day.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining.
Thanks.
Take it easy. Be well. Stay well.
Bye now.
Take care.